This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Everybody good down there? Awesome. We do have a quorum. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda, and it is the one that has been dispersed, that's on the website and everything. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening? John?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. General public comment. First round. General public comment. Jim? Yes, sir. All right.
It's okay to public comment now on the tax rate? Great. My name is Jim Smith. I live in Brightwood. For the past 4 to 6 years, my wife Kim and I have frequently been the public at scores of budget hearings conducted by this Board of Supervisors and former ones. I rarely comment, so please indulge me if I take a little over my allotted time. For the past decade, our board has moved towards zero-based budgeting, focusing on the statutory mandates to provide for the public health, safety, and welfare. To provide those essential requirements of government, you have marshaled limited and scarce resources to fulfill your statutory mandate. After you have heard from departments and NGOs and determined the cost of fulfilling the requirements, then comes the difficult task of finding the financial resources to pay for the services and capital needs. For revenue to fund the expenditures, you first look to the federal government and the state that we know relies heavily on the federal funding, and the least financially sophisticated knows that federal funding is not sustainable. The last place you look is to the citizens of Madison. Similar to other localities in the Commonwealth, Madison has a myriad of taxes and user fees ranging from dog tags to meals tax to machinery and tools, merchants' capital, and on to the both real and personal property. You examine the 60-plus sources of revenue and then determine rates that will be applied to a value. You have no control over the value of the real estate or the personal property to which the rate is applied, but you must choose rates that will provide the revenue to satisfy the zero-based budget, plus ensure that the general fund is adequate to ensure the wherewithal to address emergencies and strong fiscal position for the county. You choose this rate knowing that social services could face a crisis and the need for additional monies that you are required by statute to provide. Based on recent experience, you can always anticipate that Richmond will drop an increase in teacher salaries on you at the last minute that will result in much more than the politically represented increase, as that raise will also increase the local cost of health care, normalizing the rates across the county employee, and dealing with the additional cost in pensions. All you can do then is either reopen the budget and tax process or divert monies from the general fund. Not only must you satisfy the mandate to provide for the health, safety, and general welfare, you must also deal with the phantom taxes from the General Assembly in the form of unfunded mandates. There are literally hundreds of mandates posted online by the Office of Housing and Community Development, and scores are unfunded, meaning that local and not state revenues must pay for them. A bill introduced this year, HB 1577, would have clearly set forth the funded and unfunded portion of the mandates, but it did not even receive a hearing in committee. It died there. So much for transparency from Richmond. When you set the rates, you compare the proposed taxes to the previous tax rates and rates of inflation, and make sure that the real dollar cost of government from year to year remains flat or decreases in real dollars. You have no control over inflation, the assessed value of the real property, or the assessed value of cars. And you have no control over expenditure of funds for mandated social services, the occasional forest fire or flood. Somehow you have managed the taxes on the citizenry to remain flat and really decrease in real dollars. Yet the keyboard clowns are out in force producing a trash heap of disinformation, frequently from those who know or should know better, or a monument to the ignorance of the uninformed who nevertheless comment. Nevertheless, you have done an exceptional job, and I would encourage each of you to vote in favor of the measure. It is the fiscally responsible thing to do. Thank you for the service to the community and the example you have set for us all.
Thank you, Jim. Other public comment? We have people watching us. That's pretty good. And Tracy's here, so hey, all right. We'll do public comment again here shortly. We do have consent agenda. We've got minutes from 5/07/2025. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mr. Bowman, come up and tell us about the Shenandoah Committee. Or Blue Ridge Committee, excuse me.
Yeah, my name is Bruce Bowman, and I represent Madison on the Blue Ridge Committee for Shenandoah National Park Relations, along with Judd Buchanan, Supervisor, and Jim Ballard. Back on May 15th, Judd, Jim, and I went to a meeting up at Big Meadows, our first, two annual meetings, biannual meetings. And we got to meet our new superintendent, Stakely. And he looks like he's a keeper, I think, don't you, Judd? I do. Real user-friendly, easy to talk to, and we hope we can keep him around a while. He was appointed October of '24, but was not able to get to the park until January 1, and he's facing all these big budget cuts. Thankfully, they're good through this fiscal year, which ends September 30th. They've not even been able to put together a budget for next year because they have no idea how much the Park Service is going to be funded and how much the Shenandoah Park is going to be funded. So that creates kind of a dilemma for them. Initially, they laid off, they were told to eliminate 15 positions, and they were able to hire back one of those positions, the fellow had gotten another job, but 14 others were hired back. And of course, that only goes through the end of, until September 30th, the end of this fiscal year. So there are a lot of things that have been put on hold. For example, like the solicited bids for the concessionaires. Currently, it's Delaware North. Because costs have gone up so dramatically, particularly labor, competition for labor, summer help, they've had to rebid the concessionaire. Contract was supposed to start on January of 2026. Now it's been extended, and they won't have the bids won't be opened until late in 26, and the new concessionaire will start in 27. So Delaware North has gotten an extension of their contract. Anyway, I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights here. So everybody knows all these recent heavy rains. They've had to shut down a lot of trails, and of course, the Nethers Road has been washed out, and so Old Rag parking lot is closed. I think most of the trails up in the park have been repaired. They have a contract for air quality that was canceled, but that's now been reactivated for this fiscal year. They're doing an audit up there on structural integrity and fire susceptibility of all the buildings. And no telling what that's going to lead to, because these buildings have to be safe for the public. One big one is beginning July 1st of 2025, they will no longer accept cash at the entrance station. At this time, there's about 5% of the entry fees that are paid in cash. However, you can go to they will have it set up where you can go to vendors out in the counties, and you can buy a entrance permit from a vendor out in the county. So they will no longer take cash. There's also a possibility for anybody that likes to trout fish, low water conditions, not now, but later in the summer and high temperatures, they're probably going to get into a routine where they're shutting down trout fishing in the park during the low water, high temperature periods. These little brookies, as you know, are under a lot of pressure, and that's a big draw for tourism in Madison County, so that may affect some of the visitation up there. Chuck Jackson, you asked a question about the stoplights up on the mountain. Again, budget cuts. VDOT's and the Park Service is doing a study now, restudying that and trying to find the money to possibility they'll put traffic lights up on 33 and 211 to alleviate some of the traffic congestion. Old Rag reservations system will continue. No entry fee increase is expected. They're going to be building a new entry station up at Thornton Gap. And the only other thing I've got, some of the counties mentioned some things that were happening. Everybody's familiar with the Blue Ridge Heritage Project, the stone chimneys and the plaques memorializing the folks that came out of the park. We've got all 8 of them now in place. The last one is at Grand Caverns for Augusta County. And there is a new bicycling trail that goes around the whole park. It's called the Hills and Hollow, I know exactly the name of it. Anyway, that's open, and there are maps available. Let's see, what else? Oh, and Albemarle County, everybody knows Biscuit Run Park. That opened up in December. So Albemarle County's really taken the lead. They've, the old Browns Gap Turnpike, part of it starts out with an easement through private land. Albemarle County is going to put a kiosk improve the hiking trails, and put up a historical marker. So that was about it, unless Judd has something you want to add to it.
Yeah, just two things. The first one is that I asked him about the park visitation as of this year, or this time, and how to compare to last year with everything going on in the government. And he said it's staying steady right now. He goes, it's still, the jury's out of how many international visitors we're gonna get, because apparently we do get a lot of international visitors, and with everything going on, there may be fewer of those. But right now, everything's staying steady as far as the amount of people coming into the park.
Right.
Which is great for the income and the ticket prices that they're selling. And this last thing, this one was really amazing, I learned, is that Chuck Jackson actually has only been to the park once until this meeting. So he's, in his whole life. So we were a little concerned about that, but
There
we're
you
glad
go.
he's picking up the pace.
Hey, he seems like a big proponent of it.
Yeah, so I think he'll be
Park
visiting the
system, too.
park much more now.
That's
so.
great. Yeah, well, thank you all for that. Does anybody have any questions on the board?
Yeah, I got one. What do you mean you said there was a fresh air contract?
Yeah, they monitor the air quality.
Do they?
You can go online and see different places around the state with the air quality, green being good, all the way to red, maybe black.
Glad to see people are monitoring that.
But yeah, it's kind of
All right.
interesting.
Yeah, there you
So a
go.
lot of those programs are going to be probably cut out.
Yeah, sounds-
And they're certainly probably going to see fewer employees up there, and they're operating on bare bones right now, budget-wise and manpower-wise. It's like a little city up there on the mountain. So, anyway, give them all the support you can.
Other questions for
And we've,
Bruce?
I don't know if Judd or Jonathan invited the new superintendent down to visit Madison, but he mentioned he'd like to come down and speak to the board and
No, let's do that.
answer any
Yeah,
questions.
I
you got.
spoke, there's a gentleman on his, I know I say chief of staff, this is in Washington DC, but I did speak to one of his chief of staff who was going into a meeting that day. We were talking about VDOT closures and helping with White Oak and all that. But I said, hey, we've requested, please let him know that we would love to have him here. Plus, I want contacts, so God forbid emergencies. We've had great relationships with the last 3 or 4 superintendents, so I would like for that to carry on. But officially come down and speak to the board. That's been a customary practice. We would love to when they come, if you, as traditionally you and/or Jim, I think, do the introduction. But that would be, there was an interim, and then there was, it was Pat Kenny was the full-time superintendent prior to the interim. He retired after the wildfire. Most folks come to us either from Yellowstone, Yosemite, or Grand Canyon. Usually their last stop is here most of the
It's like,
time.
what, 1.7 million expected this year of visitors?
I think so.
It's a lot of folks.
So we welcome them and hope they come soon. Plus, our emergency management team would like to meet with them for obvious pre-planned or discussions and learn anything that the park may have of interest or concerns from Madison County.
Anybody else have comments, questions? Thank you very much, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, we don't have any public hearings. Mr. Weekly, what else do we have to say about the FY '26 budget adoption with the resolution 2025-10?
A lot of work. Again, thanks to the board for your time put through it. I echo Mr. Smith's comments, and thanks to Ms. Warren. She put together a resolution. Obviously, not all the detail that's there from the budget advertisement, because we have to put this in a resolution, but both Ms. Warren or myself stand by if you have any questions. If not, this is the avenue for you to officially adopt the FY '26 budget. So we stand by for any questions. If not, you have the resolution there. Ms. Warren, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just want to mention it is as advertised and as we discussed at the last meeting, no changes.
Comments, thoughts? Anybody?
I just look, I just look at $70 million.
Yeah, isn't that
Wow.
crazy?
You'll have one more step after this, which will be the appropriation that will occur in June.
All right. Do y'all want to do comments as part of the discussion, or do you want to do them beforehand? Doesn't really matter. Either way.
Doesn't matter to me either.
Well, I'll tell you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Resolution 2025-10.
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Now, discussion. Jim, please.
Yes, sir. Going back over this, and this was an excruciating budget process this year, and there's, just to recap some of the things that happened. We initially had budget requests increases, and this is just one of the figures, I know this is in the ballpark, was 12.1% increase in our budget. We went through line by line, and we reduced the budget down to where it's about a 4 to 5.4% increase, which is a phenomenal decrease. You know, and I think about the comments always made about Doge. We beat Doge hands down. We have cut the budget, our spending to the bone with a scalpel, not a hatchet. And I know that sitting through many of these things, these budget meetings, we had to do trade-offs. We had to postpone some things. The other thing that most folks don't realize is that how the General Assembly has caused us major budget problems this year. They cut our school allocation, I think, what, $700,000. They stopped funding one of our SOR officers, and my understanding is next year they're going to stop funding all of them. So that's stuff that local taxpayers have to make up. And what's aggravating about that whole situation, and I've been harping on this, is that the state government is running huge budget surpluses, that they refuse to help the localities, whether it's Madison or whether it's Fairfax or whether it's Richmond. They're not helping the localities with that money that was paid in by people who live in the localities. So we had to struggle with that, and we can't. What's our alternative if they take that funding away? Do we fire teachers? Do we reduce the number of deputies? Do we, just stop having EMS run at night? These are things that we cannot do. We have just got our back up against the wall, despite all the efficiencies, and I'll give another shout out to all our departments. They have worked hard to keep their spending under control. It's phenomenal what these folks do to keep spending under control. So we reached a point where, grudgingly, we had to raise taxes because of the state situation and because of the increase of inflation, which has run anywhere, depending on what category you want to look at, for the past 5 years. Total cumulative is at least 27% more if you look at housing and fuel costs. But in that time, we have had a budget, we have had an inflation rate that's gone up at least 25 to 30% overall during that 5-year period since the last time taxes had to be raised. And our spending during that period has lagged the rate of inflation, and with our efficiencies, we have reached a point where even with a dearth of state funding, we put ourselves into a situation where we're going to increase real estate taxes by 2 pennies. Now, going back to some models that I had previously introduced at some of our meetings, a hypothetical example, and this is if you owned a home in Madison County over the last 5 to 6 years. It was one of the best investments you could have, by the way. I'm taking one of the particular properties that I own, and it went up in valuation by about 30%, 30+%. And if the taxes had followed the inflation rate, the taxes on that property would be 25% higher than they were 5 years ago. But because of the stewardship that this board, the leadership that this board has shown, the cooperation and leadership of our department heads, and just generally everybody that works in county government, the rate increase of property taxes on that particular house didn't go up 25%, they went up 4%, the total property taxes. That, I don't know of anybody else that can do that. We have the second lowest property tax rate in the area. Only Culpeper beats us, but we don't have the revenue, the tax base that they do have. And that's something that we are actively working on, which we will see here shortly in the Economic Development Committee report. But just to put in perspective where we were and where we are today, I honestly don't know how we kept our services up to the level that they are, which is superb, from the school system to EMS to the sheriff's department, on the little money that we have to actually work with. So, I have to commend the county employees, my fellow supervisors, all of the folks that worked on this, the school board, to arrive at, I think, what is the best successful outcome that we could have had given the circumstances this year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Other comments, thoughts? Please.
I'm gonna mirror some of what Jim said, but What I'd like to say is I've been here when we started this budget process for this year, which is about over a year. And when I first joined the board, I thought that I would come on board and look around the county and see all these people sitting on their hands, leaning on their shovels, doing, just what you typically are told what government employees do. I have not found one instance of anything that even comes close to that. You have the hardest working employees doing more work with less than I've seen anywhere else. I'd like to, thank the departments, especially our chairman who's in deep into this, deeper than I even know how to get into, and everybody else here on the board. And just let the public know, like, I'm new at this, but I'm so impressed with what we're able to do with what little we have. And so being part of the Economic Development Committee, we're hoping to bring more in to the county so we don't have the type of discussions we've had the last, what is it now, we're almost in June, 5 months, right? So I'm just so impressed with everything that we've been able to do and how low we've been able to keep this tax increase. And what, I just have high hopes for what we're doing for the future. That's what I had to say, so thank you.
I don't have anything. No, the only comment I've got is right along the lines with these fine folks. We are at a point of, we are at the base of needs. Anything else you cut, you're really getting to get any kind of sizable number. As far as monetary, we're cutting essential services, and that will be essential services with staff. This thing's as thin as it can be almost, with staying within our 18% contingency reserve, which is a good policy and we should continue with. The only one that I'll just point out, this is not just this year. Our departments continually act responsibly and have for years and years and years. And with that partnership, that's what let us be able to keep these taxes as low as they are. Certainly the work Ms. Warren, Jonathan, Brian, all of the staff has done to prepare this budget, working with us and explaining it to us in ways that just make sense and show the depiction of the reality of the economic situation we're in. It has aided and made this process much more seamless than it has ever been. And every year watching this process, it's gotten better and better and better. Every year, though, it is crisis management because we are running this line so fine between barely able to make it to having to raise taxes that we take so seriously. Everybody says, oh, you're just taking our money. It's everybody sitting here and the majority of our staff as well. We understand the constraints that people on fixed incomes have, and just we want to leave money in the private sector so that they can put money back into the economy and can do what they want with their hard work funds. This is a justified budget. Won't go into the inflation side of it, but this is a challenging year. We've certainly tried our hardest to keep this as low as possible and not overtax or cut or sell ourselves short so that we cannot provide those essential services. Anybody else have anything? All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Once again, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, there you go. 2025-10 is passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you for everybody put time into this. It's a teamwork effort. All right, Mr. Weekly, you've got Hoover Ridge Forest Open Space Management Agreement. We need to do a public hearing. When are you proposing?
I believe it was July 8th,
Oh,
unless
I
we
got-
want to go to the second meeting in June. I think those would be appropriate options.
let's do, I thought we were gonna do it on June 10th.
We have a few on June 10th.
Oh, we were gonna
Trying to
try and
remember.
knock out a whole slew of public hearings in one night.
The-
8 is too many, so as long as we're beneath 8, we're doing okay.
Yeah, We initially had not spoke about this one at the time we set the other one, like, for DSS, the bonuses we talked then, the, speed camera one, when we set that. This is one that came back because when Hannah initially reviewed this, we had some language concerns, or deeper language concerns. We sent it to DEQ, their AG office sent back, so it's taken a little bit. So, certainly we have to have the advertisement, requirement. So I would recommend either the second meeting in June, to give yourself enough time for advertisement, or the first business meeting in July.
June 24th work for everybody? Break them up, we'll get into series. Hannon, that should give us enough time to advertise for this. Good. Everybody understands what this open space agreement at Hoover Ridge is, one, doing for us by saving, what, $80,000+.
Yeah, it's either do the open space agreement, which the survey's in there, we have the acreage, it's near unused land anyway, Little Dark Run, so you're not naturally gonna build in there, or spend 88,000 on nutrient credits, which seems like extortion.
This-
My words, not yours.
This is a perpetual easement, that will always exist. It does limit, in a lot of ways, things that we can do, that they weren't gonna allow us to do in the first place, honestly. It all pertains around the stream that runs through the property.
Little Dark
out on
Run.
Hoover Ridge, Little Dark Run.
You
thank
can have nature trails, sir, you can have a pedestrian bridge, we have all that in writing from DEQ, you just will not be able to put, paving or buildings, and things you wouldn't normally have in that area anyway.
There you go. Everybody good on June 24th? Anybody have questions, comments on the issue?
No.
We good?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. June 24th, open space, public hearing. Thank you. All right. Let's go new business, subdivision and site plan ordinance amendment. Alan, are we starting, we've got quite the package here. Let's start with you, and then we'll go to Jim Jewett and Jim Smith, and we can try to figure out a plan.
Very good.
Good.
First, it feels weird to speak to you from this podium. It brings back flashbacks of times past, but
No,
here we are.
we're actually gonna mandate you start going up there for your reports, but,
very good.
just keep you comfortable, please.
All right, gentlemen. So in March of this year, Governor Youngkin signed amendments through existing legislation in SB 974. So there are significant changes that are required of our zoning ordinance, specifically our subdivision and site plan ordinance, to be in compliance with this new bill. The meat and potatoes of it is it removes the governing body and the planning commission as the approving authorities for subdivisions, site plans, and bonding requirements. So in your packet, you've got the legislation itself, as well as the redlined changes to the subdivision and site plan ordinances. Instead of the governing body or the planning commission being the approving authorities, it's been replaced by a designated agent, which would assume to be Jonathan, for him to designate as he sees fit. So I've been through the legislation word by word and updated us to getting to compliance with it. To be fair, the changes that are proposed here are a Band-Aid. We've talked about this at the Planning Commission level a little bit. There are some shortfalls with a single individual being the approving authority for site plans and subdivisions. Foremost, these things will no longer get a public hearing. We won't advertise these things. It's going to happen administratively. So part of what Mr. Smith is working on are development impact ordinances that will help protect Madison and our values from incoming development that may not be in line with those. So otherwise, the portion that I have prepared is pretty straightforward, gets us in compliant with the state code, and other changes will need to be forthcoming, as soon as we can get them put together.
Cardi, you mentioned before the meeting you've identified a couple areas that just need to be changed over to designee. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, yeah. I just found one so far, and that was,
Yeah, get it together.
come on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nah,
right.
one's pretty good. Good Lord, man.
Why won't this pop up?
Supervisor,
Oh. Open pop-up note. Oh, A.5.1, I think it's on page 40 of our packet. But, so let me go to 40, A5.1. No, maybe it wasn't 40, A5.1. Oh, yeah, there it is. A.5.1. Next to the last sentence says the Board of Supervisors shall act on any proposed site plan that is previously disapproved. Right, you see it? See, next to the last sentence of A.5.1, the Board of Supervisors shall act on any.
Understood.
You
Yes,
just
sir.
got to change that to designate. So, Alan, is this, so the red lines that are in here, is that complete at this point, or
Yes,
this is
this-
just a
this-
work in
The struck words are for removal.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
the reds are to be inserted.
right?
Everything that I touched is red to bring your attention to it. And with the exception of what you just pointed out to me, I
Yeah.
see this as complete unless Hannon finds something different, or one of you do.
Yeah, I just did a search on Board of Supervisors or something, and it came up with that. And also, so I guess the good news, it looks like to me in here, is we have 60 days for the designated person to approve these things instead of, at one point, I understood it was gonna be 7 or something.
So
Something terribly short.
There
Is that-
are short provisions in here. Currently, the code is that you have 10 days to forward plans to other agencies like VDOT or VDH, and that has been struck and shortened to 5 days. So it does require a little more management in the office. Those things are fine. We can manage those things.
But what, the 60 days that, you know, say, whoever the designated, I assume it's probably gonna be you, but, the designated individual that's gonna do this, do they have 60 days to review a site plan and,
I believe that is correct unless
that's-
you are waiting on comments from other agencies, and
Yeah.
then I believe it's 35. Like, it's short, if you have to add steps, every time it comes back to you, the period of time shortens.
uh-huh. Oh, yeah, true. If you kick it back.
So like when other agency comments come back to you, I believe it's 35. It's a shorter period of time if you've given somebody a revision to make.
Yeah,
It's less than the original, and the language states you can only address the things that you gave them to address. You can't find new stuff. So they're trying to prevent staff or approving authorities from making requirements of people that would drag on a process.
Questions for Mr. Nichols on this before we go to Jim Jewett and Jim Smith? Hannon, have you looked over all this?
Would you like it?
I've got a couple of notes for Alan. I think it's largely right. We've got to clean up, I think, the appeal stuff, and then maybe either in this or somewhere else, really define designated agent, and how that person gets designated. But I got a couple other notes for this, but we're at least a 70% solution, probably a lot higher.
All right, questions for Hannon or Allen? All right. You good down there?
yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at the time periods.
I mean, and what has been proposed at this point is that we do our public hearing and make a decision on this at the joint July 2nd meeting, which we should all still be legal. And state law certainly trumps local law. Mr. Jewett, would you like to start with what you've proposed with Mr. Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be very brief. Because when this Economic Development Committee was created, one of the charges was to develop fiscal and economic impact analysis for development in the county. And that, in addition to Mr. Smith's expertise in this, he's taken the lead on this and has been working cooperatively with Mr. Nichols, the Planning Commission, And he's done an extensive amount of work, they both have, and it's impressive. So I'm just gonna turn it over to Mr. Smith and let him give you an overview of what he's doing.
Thank you, Mr. Jewett. As kind of an overview, the earlier comments when we talked about unfunded mandates, the Madison way of dealing with proposals has been that we advertise, and this is required by our ordinance. When we advertise, the citizens who are neighbors of the proposed land use change are encouraged to appear before the Planning Commission. They voice their comments. The Planning Commission asks questions of both the staff and the applicant. The applicant can then hear the problems that his proposal may well have and offer proffers. The Planning Commission then makes a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that they either approve or deny. You then hear, have open hearing, more public comment, more opportunity for proffers. That opportunity is gone. That is not the Madison way. I mean, it goes straight to an administrative process. If you come in with an application, then our administrator, the designated responsible person, will look at the ordinance, look at the application, see if the box is checked. If they check, it's approved. If they don't, it's not. There's no opportunity for proffer. And this can be an inordinately expensive process for us. So if you view a tax as something that's spent for other than a good or service, this creates an enormous tax and one more unfunded mandate. I have no earthly idea how it got through or got signed by the governor, but ironically, this bill was signed the day before. It signed into law the day before this board approved the first report of the Economic Development Committee. So what we did was say, let's consider that the application, which will not be reviewed, that in order for an application to be filed as a condition precedent for filing an application, that the applicant engages in a recognized economics firm that would perform a fiscal impact analysis. What a fiscal impact analysis is, it shows the cost to government, the cost of new schools, the cost of new law enforcement, the cost of emergency services, the cost of water and wastewater, all these costs. And if, under the proposed ordinance that's drafted, if that results in a 0 or a positive number, then the application can go forward. If it results in a negative number, then the applicant, at the direction of the board, can then go for an economic impact analysis. What the economic impact analysis would do, the economists would determine what the direct influence is to the county, what new dollars come in, so that when you would look at the economic impact and the fiscal impact to see whether or not there was a net positive to the county. If there wasn't, the application would fail and not go forward. The view and the review of the fiscal impact analysis and the economic impact analysis would go before the Planning Commission with our recommendation, or with its recommendation, and then to the Board of Supervisors for its recommendation as to accept or deny the application's ability to go forward. Once it's approved, then it goes forward under the revised ordinances as Alan has presented them to conform with the new law. When we discussed this briefly before this board in the past, you'd ask questions. Some of the supplemental material goes to looking at close by jurisdictions to see what they have done in the way of this analysis. Nothing. My research through sources in the American Planning Association, the Smart Growth organization, which is highly recognized, has a lot of work in planning, and other reputable organizations find that there are only about 15 jurisdictions in the whole United States that has fiscal impact analysis, economic impact analysis requirements. So the first question would be, are we going out on thin ice with this? I think probably not, because both of those studies have been undertaken since the mid to late 70s. Economic analysis from 26 forward, 1926. Fiscal impact analysis from 78 forward. A tremendous amount has been written. The Virginia Division of the American Planners Association has held conferences, so it's a known and a recognized approach for determining the hits to the county so that the county can do things to mitigate.
What triggers the economic and the physical impact study, Jim? Because like the big concern on like family subdivisions and some of these vary, and we had one. My example was the three gentlemen that were here that subdivided a tract into 3 new lots and then the residue over on Beautiful Run. It was a very cut and dry case. They had done all their homework. The man's economic advisor had recommended that at this point in his life, this is what they should be doing. Had all his ducks in a row. Planning Commission had very few questions. That certainly would not trigger this economic and physical impact to the county.
No, it should not, and there are blanks left to determine the size and the number of houses. We know in the past, for as long as I've been attending meetings, we have, with 15 houses in a subdivision, there's a requirement that you have public water and wastewater. So developers will do a 7-house subdivision and an 8-house subdivision right beside it. Well, you know, that's kind of gaming the system. We need some way to do it, but the goal of the Economic Development Committee is to develop the county economically. We know from fiscal impact in housing, that is a loser. It really is. The more houses you build, there's just no way that the tax revenues on the houses are going to overcome the cost of, if you get another 100 house subdivision in the county, the folks down the road here at the at Fire and Rescue are going to toss you the keys to the building, say that next truck's on you. It might well put us over our capacity for students in the schools, meaning building additional classrooms, buying additional buses. So it's reasonable and responsible to look at fiscal impact, but as we have discussed in the past, Cardi brought up, what if a mom and pop grocery store wants to, or service stop, wants to put an apartment over it? Well, you know, there's got to be limits. And if you're looking at the 15 number and just so that it can't be split and the system can't be gamed, then perhaps we put in a number that's absolute.
I think we're going to have to. Please, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, so Jim, so we're suggesting that the Planning Commission and then the board could participate in accepting or denying that an application is complete. So we would be ruling that, yes, we believe this application is complete.
No, we believe
that
that the fiscal impact analysis and the economic impact analysis does not place an undue burden on the county, so the application then can go forward. So
Right,
it's a
and then that's a
condition
box
precedent
that's got to
to-
be checked on the application.
Yes.
I cannot believe this is legal. But
I
in
know,
the same
it sounds-
sense, this is such a crafty
Well-
way to do this in every way. Hannon, is this what do you think, Hannon? I appreciate this whole approach.
yeah.
This sounds real good to me. This is much better than what I expected.
Or the other option is to make our agent an attorney. That would hang things up.
So, this is, I don't want to opine too early on this, right? And this is a recorded meeting, and I wouldn't want to give any ammunition to somebody that might undermine what we eventually end up doing if we do it. I know we had a discussion real briefly about what maybe not Virginia localities are doing, but what some other places are doing. Can we just say this is an issue that I need to explore? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I would like to still use the word crafty. I think we've got, it's a question for, Jonathan, you're on this list too, and certainly everybody down there on the board. We have Ellen Nichols' proposal that will make us, as he said, a Band-Aid compliant, that would get us to that July 2nd advertised public hearing so that our ordinance are in compliance with the state law. Do we want to try to meld these two initially before we get to the, prior to the July 2nd, which would certainly, this is heavy, but do we want to try to meld those and get it all together in the July 2nd public hearing, or do we need to get the Band-Aid fix taken care of, and then we can meld these immediately afterwards?
My inclination is that we probably need to slow down on this one,
Yes.
but it may also mean, even if it's a one-liner amendment to what we consider a completed application, we could do that to integrate the two. But I don't know if Mr. Smith's already given any thought to that one, or?
Good, come back up.
I try to have staff work complete. I've worked for too many Marine Corps officers in the past and been upbraided for not doing it. So there are two things that could be done. One, we currently have a provision in our ordinances, Article 16, Development Impact. And there are a lot of good words, but it's sadly word salad. We could do some amendments to that to put some legs and teeth on it. In the past, we've required these, but it's been on an ad hoc basis, which if I were told to fill one out, I would say you're being arbitrary and capricious. So there's some things that we could do with that without getting into the entirety of what I propose. One other thing that I would point out is that the state law, there's a word that attorneys use, I dearly love it, it's inartful. It's not a word, look it up, but we all know what it means. The legislation that fell in our laps applies these provisions to subdivision plats, site plans, and plans of development. Only one of those terms is defined in the statute, and that's site plans, and that happens to be the only term that's defined in the Madison County ordinances as well. So if somebody files a subdivision plat, I don't know what that is, and I don't know if Jonathan has, or I don't know if we have to accept it, because the legislators didn't tell us. There's no legislative history as to what it means. So we have those three things, as well as monkeying with the existing provision that Article 16.
I really expected you to add more clarity to this. All right. Yeah, I'm taking suggestions. Anybody's got one, let's go at it. I mean, it sounds like what we need to do is we need to work off of what Mr. Nichols has put together to get us compliant with state law. Jim has made the proposal that we go down Article 16, add some quick language in that will at least enable us to go down that path, and then modify the ordinance post-July 2nd public hearing pretty promptly. Does that seem like something that's palatable to everybody up here?
Yeah,
And there was a third.
What's the third? Give me a third.
That's to challenge the legislation
Oh,
that
geez.
usurps too much of your authority.
You want to challenge? Oh, you're good, good. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It doesn't sound like we've got a whole lot of, I would guess that larger localities are already looking at the challenge on this, because just on the basis, I understand that a lot of them are doing these things administratively currently. But if this is as big of a problem as it seems like it is to us, which it should be, and it's eliminating a bunch of checks and balances. Oh, that's a reasonable question too. Anybody have any idea?
We were gonna contact Baco to see whether there was gonna be a challenge to this law. Baco opposed it initially. That's just it, nobody can figure out how this thing got passed.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's fairly clear. I know, and we appreciate the things, but this one does look like that. Let's go down let's if this seems reasonable, One, let's check with VACO and see where they're at, certainly. And in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, when we have our next meeting, there can be an update that goes with that, and email it out if need be. I think we should proceed with Alan's version, working with Mr. Smith, because he's obviously put in a tremendous amount of time on this, and I hope that you work with Jim and whoever else. Try to get this thing so we can get something ready, and we need to have some adjustments to Article 16 to give teeth. Does that seem right, Alan?
It seems like a good course of action.
Okay. Everybody on board with that? Good?
Yeah, Jim, you're right. Yeah, 16 definitely has the stuff in there, but it says should be evaluated, may be required to, blah, 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 you know.
Let's go down that path. We'll get some
Yeah.
teeth in it, and then we cannot let we cannot let the rest of this fall by the wayside. This seems like let Hannon educate himself a little bit, and then come to us. But it seems like this may actually give us a little bit of public input on it, which it certainly should have. Anybody good?
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
I just
Good on this
want-
direction?
I just have one thing
Yeah.
to add. Thinking ahead, you're having a joint session on this on the 2nd. One additional avenue you could consider, I definitely agree, first step, let's fix the wording and things to be compliant with the law. Secondly, if you want to get within Article 16 and define things like family subdivision, doesn't make sense, single-family lots, whatever, but if you want to get into specifics of what would trigger it, 15 or more lots, commercial development of certain square footage or acreage, things like that, you could always, task your planning commission to do an ordinance amendment to that.
Post July 2nd.
Post July 2nd.
Yeah.
You have them in session. If you wanted that option, that's generally the way you go, is you give directives to the PC. So
Yes.
just food for thought.
I
I do think you're gonna need some criteria, what you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree.
At least some basic
I
criteria.
agree. Is that a reasonable request as well, Mr. Nichols, to come up with some reasonable criteria for the board to task the planning commission to make amendments to this post July 2nd?
That's Article
All right.
16.
And I mean,
specific.
I'm asking all you gentlemen down there. Yeah. Let's go down the path that was previously discussed. Also, you all will be able to get this out to this board and then the planning, or this board prior to the next meeting, so we can have a quick review for the advertisement, so that we are prepared with the adjusted language for the July 2nd public hearing.
If I'm hearing correctly, Mr. Chairman, you're asking for the draft of at least
Yeah.
what the quick fix, if you will?
Quick fix,
We-
quick
we
fix
can-
plus Article 16 stuff.
I think that's reasonable. Yes, sir.
I had a question, Mr. Chairman. Procedurally, since the Economic Development Committee, which is your creation, was tasked with producing an ordinance, can that shortstop the planning commission for purposes of just Article 16 to speed it up?
Go ahead.
Procedural question.
I think because this is a zoning ordinance, we're gonna have to get, sort of the recommendation of the planning commission before passage. It's gonna, even if it's the joint meeting, it's gonna have to go through
Okay.
PC at some point.
There you go. All right, there you go.
So just to recap, Mr.
So-
Chairman, at your meeting in 2 weeks, staff's going to produce you a draft that has the site plan subdivision ordinance, as well as draft criteria for consideration of Article 16 in advance of the public hearing that you are agreeing to have July 2nd at the joint meeting. Did I capture that
But
correctly?
the Article 16 stuff will go.
It'll go to
Yeah.
planning commission, but we'll have at least some concepts of Article
So
16.
we don't need to, maybe I'm making this much more confusing than it is. We don't need to take the Article 16 items and at least add some teeth in it for the July 2nd public hearing. And then post that, we can add additional language so that we become compliant and we have some grip.
So I'm going to pull Hannon back in on this conversation. I definitely know the subdivision and site plan stuff that Alan's presented, that's ready to go. Both the adjustments that Supervisor Yao had pointed out, definitely for the 24th, and will be ready for July 2nd. My only concern and hesitation in answering your question, we can have some suggestions for Article 16, but what I believe I heard Mr. Wright say is that those suggestions should run through the Planning Commission, not necessarily as a decisive action on June or July 2nd, but at a workshop. I want to clarify that part.
No, I think we can make it decisive action on July 2nd.
Okay.
But we're gonna have to have the draft done in order to be able to advertise it. So we're just gonna have to be sprinting in the next couple of days to get it ready for whatever Chairman of the Planning Commission wants to move on to. If they want to do a chop on it before July 2nd.
Perfect. And you can always give that draft, because it'll come to them before the workshop of the PC in June. So that would be an opportunity to say, hey, this is coming before the board at the joint meeting. Here's the draft.
On June, but the soonest, the next workshop for the Planning Commission will be June 18th, where you would be breaking the information about Article 16 to them, which probably would put us outside of the period that we need to advertise. So I would think that the thing to do would be, is to have something prepared that we make it understood that this is basically just a stopgap until we can modify post-July 2nd public hearing. So we would be having something to the Planning Commission that is proposed and ready to go to advertisement with the direction of the Board of Supervisors for the July 2nd that we can jointly do, hopefully get a recommendation from the Planning Commission and pass, and then we add to that post-July 2nd.
Everything you're saying is correct. The only thing that could be a change in this is if in the middle of June, there's some huge substantial changes to what we're thinking about for 16.1, and now your advertising window shifts to the right. But otherwise,
I would hope we can convey that, what this actually is, and then we can get them to go along with it, and that would be an easier direction.
So how about, so at our May joint session
That's the one I'm missing.
with the Planning Commission, we'll have something just to enter in some general discussion?
No,
About
it's,
it, or
it's
that's
June.
not-
We're done with May.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, no, I thought it was me at first. Normally you're on it. Come on now.
That's right.
That's
June.
why
I mean June.
No,
Yeah, I mean June.
the June, our June,
June. To
We
have the
can-
general discussion at the joint meeting in June?
you have a week.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got, if we're gonna do that, that means you've got 8 days, to get something to them as just a discussion item. But the intent is to go to public hearing on July 2nd with what is proposed. Yes, sir. Even sparsely. It doesn't have to be all the way completed. Does that work? Let's go down that path. Good?
That timeline, I want to have that for you all to review. We will, not I. For the June 10th meeting, and I'd like to get that out the door for advertisement on June 11th for the July 2nd public hearing.
We're gonna talk about this on June 4th with the Planning Commission.
Can, absolutely.
Let's do that. Yeah, so the June 10th we should be able to instruct advertisement next Wednesday.
Okay.
Appreciate everybody rushing.
That's it.
Apologize
That's what I
for
was
making
trying
it
to
so
say, yeah.
confusing. No, I did. I'm telling you, good Lord. Anybody else got anything on this? Gentlemen, thank you all for your work. Really appreciate it. All right, let's move on. Committee's board update. Ms. Turner, I hear we have an applicant.
You do. Let me pull that up. Just a second. And this applicant has attended a few meetings, so I don't know if your other Economic Development Committee members want to comment, but you have an applicant in your packet for your consideration for the Economic Development Committee.
All right, gentlemen, what do we want, anybody, please? Are you talking about the email account? Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty good. Judd?
Yeah, we had one of her, I guess, employees, Derek, had first come to the meetings and he was gonna join, and then decided to move back to Pennsylvania. She's come in and totally impressed me, and I think other members on the Economic Development Committee, with her preparation, her knowledge. She's up on Virginia state law, she's up on our zoning laws, she's up on just about everything going on in the county, more so than a lot of people in the county. She's impressed me. I would welcome her on this board. And that's my feelings. How about
Yeah, I agree 100% with Supervisor Buchanan. And actually, and I'll talk about this shortly, she's initiating a proposal to the county for a project that, at least initially, looks like it could benefit us dramatically. Of course, we do our due diligence. But what I like about her is she's got a history of successful ventures, and she has the means to do so, the knowledge and means to pull off, I think, this project she's proposed. But it's very early, and so we really can't share any details. She is very good at promoting agro-tourism, which is what this would actually be, the project would fall under. And that's one of our priorities here for economic development. And she's already done due diligence. We've been very impressed with her advanced work that she's done on this.
Yeah. I do have a question. Sound really bad. She is going, but she understands that even though she is proposing a specific business, that the committee would be hearing hopefully hearing multitudes of other businesses. It's not just centered around.
No, not just her.
Excellent.
And she's aware that she has to recuse herself in any situation where there's a conflict of interest.
I think she would help recruit other businesses. Her connections across the country, really,
Yes.
and in this area are pretty strong. So I think she's a good person to have on the committee.
All right. Young lady's name is Molly Wilshire. Thank you. Do we want to interview this young lady, or do we want to just go ahead and appoint based on recommendations from our board members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you could also ask our Economic Development Director.
Yeah.
She's worked with her extensively.
Tracy? Excellent. Good. That holds more weight than you gentlemen.
I know. That's why I said ask her.
Thank you, Tracy. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve Molly Wilshire for the Economic Development Committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all.
The CVRJ, the person I was talking to, it fell through. It was too many conflicts of interest for them, so.
All right. Are we advertising for CVRJ?
I was waiting for you.
Yeah.
Y'all want to advertise? Let's advertise.
I have one more that recently came through via email. I was going to cover it under information correspondence, but just go ahead and throw it out there now. Mr. Hoffman has given resignation from the Thomas Jefferson Area Criminal Justice Board. That's a mouthful. So if we're advertising for CVRJ and some of these others, I'd recommend doing so as well for that vacancy.
And we need to send Mr. Hoffman a letter saying thank you for serving for so long.
Yes, sir.
And well. Y'all want to advertise for that one as well? Yes. Let's do it. Please. Anything else on that?
Yes, sir.
Good. Grays Mountain Lodge Annual Fireworks Event. We've got a large-scale outdoor event permit application, then a fireworks permit application. Everybody signs off on these.
Yes, we've sent it around. These are standard, but we still send it around to emergency management or first response folks. So if there's certain criteria or they're doing their planning, but everything, staff finds it in order and recommends approval.
I think we can do both of them in one foul motion. What do y'all want to do here? Anybody have questions, comments, thoughts? All All right.
So moved.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, Economic Development Committee report. Mr. Jewett?
Okay, I did, let's see, Kim, you did get these printed out, correct, and passed, okay. Just to give you a brief update of where we're at, this thing has taken off, kind of, we're trying to chase it down, so many things have happened. We are currently looking at several different areas, data centers, we've been doing extensive research on that, we have interviewed developers, we've interviewed local county officials who have dealt with data centers. We're currently working with REC on future power developments for areas in the county. And it's just been trying to drink out of a fire hose. And some of the frustrating aspects of this is that we're getting conflicting and incomplete information. And this is coming from people who are actively and intimately involved with data center development. Such things as resource usage. One of the concerns is water requirements for cooling, any negative environmental impacts, because, and I'll state this and we'll repeat this, that this committee will not pursue anything that's detrimental to this county, whether it's the environment, the character, the people. So we are being very careful in advancing this research. We also are scheduling a site visit into Inova Data Center July 8th. Hopefully that will resolve some of the questions that we have, but we're continuing to actively research the potential of a data center in Madison. The other project that we started looking at was Amazon warehouse possibility. Amazon announced recently that they were developing small regional warehouses around the country. And, you know, we thought that this might be a possibility for Madison County, either at the old Plow and Hearth or possibly at another site within the county. That's in the very, very initial stages of just being able to try to contact someone. The event venue, and this is something that just came up recently, and this is their applicant to the Economic Development Committee, Molly. She actually met with us today and introduced this project. It's on her property that's accessible by Oak Park, and it looks like it's going to do seasonal activities. It wouldn't be something that would be running 24/7, 52 weeks a year. Right now, she's planning, if this passes, to start off with Christmas light show in December and followed by a spring event, and then depending upon that, possibly expanding. She would not run even during, for example, the Christmas holiday. She would only run weekend activities. She would not be running 7 days a week. She has, her company, and she and her company have extensive experience in doing this. And based upon what she has said and the symbiosis that would go along with this facility and other businesses in the county, it really is, it's very encouraging at this point. But again, she's in the initial stages of the development process. We have to see what the final proposal will be, but we have been very impressed with her. And again, she has extensive knowledge in agritourism, and that's something that we could definitely use on the committee. So it seems like all of a sudden there's an explosion of interest in different things in Madison County, which is good. The problem is, of course, we have to be cautious and dot our I's and cross our T's. The other thing which just came up is that Jim Smith has done the draft of the changes to the county ordinances. And I will leave this, one of the other issues that I feel like we need to consider and the board needs to consider is we probably need to have a town hall this summer to update citizens on what we're doing and solicit feedback. There's already all kinds of wild stories going around, like we're building 10 data centers. I mean, who knows where this comes from, but we want to make sure that we are completely transparent and people know what we're trying to do. So that's where we're at right now with the committee, but it has been going wide open. It amazes me how fast things have been moving with this and the different possibilities for the county that we could pursue.
Questions for Jim? Jim Smith, anything to add? I don't know. I do like that comment about doing a town hall. Want to do one in August?
We're gonna have to have pizza, but
Yeah, that's how you get people to show. We don't have any money for that. Let's do one in August. Bring it up at, why don't we bring it up at what about bringing it up at our second meeting in June, to have it on that agenda, and we'll set a date.
Okay.
That work? All right. Everybody good with that?
Yes, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good, thank you. All right, anything else on Economic Development Committee?
No, anything
Judd, I
else, Judd?
apologize. You got anything?
You got it.
Okay. Tracy, anything? Jim? We have, and of course, Brian and Jonathan, we have a really great group to work with.
Sounds like it. Anybody have any discussion? All right, Jonathan, information and correspondence.
Speed camera, public hearing, and local staff, when I say local staff bonuses, that's your constitutional offices and DSS, scheduled June 10th. Kim, did I miss one on there? I think that's both of them.
Anybody got questions on those? And we're advertised? There you go. All right, any other information and correspondence? All right, back to public comment. Public comment. All right, no closed session tonight. Thank y'all.
move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Jim.
This conference is no longer being recorded.